Hey everyone, and welcome to this video. Today I'm actually going to be talking about the alternatives space model. This is one of the fundamental models of a book series called Reality Transurfing, which is one I really enjoy. I do actually also have a community around reality transurfing as a model, as a way to help you achieve your goals and improve your life in general. So today we're going to cover a couple of things. Let me actually go to the next page. By the way, I really like this background. This is from Reality Transurfing, from the book cover. Topics. What is the alternative space? So we're going to talk about what is this model. Lifelines. What are they? The alternatives flow. The heart and mind. The path of least resistance. Guiding signs and letting go of control. So what is the alternative space? Well, there's a reality. There's one reality that you are living in right now, the one where you are watching this video, of course. Now, you might have heard as well about parallel realities or infinite realities or parallel universes. And I'm kind of like going to stop using a bunch of different terms right now, but just use one and explain to you what this model actually is. So according to Reality Transurfing, reality exists in an infinite number of variations. So imagine it like this. Imagine a grid, and there's the reality, the bottom left, that's where we're currently living, where you're currently watching this video. And then there's like an infinite, that's the important point, infinite possible other potential realities that exist. So, for example, a reality where you woke up today at 6 a.m., where you woke up today at 7 a.m., at 8 a.m., at 9 a.m., where you didn't wake up at all, where you are watching this video, where you're not watching this video. You can think of it as crazy as you want, where you have blue hair, red hair, pink hair, orange hair, purple hair, blonde hair, no hair, basically an infinite number of variations. And this is the alternative space model, basically stating that there's a reality and the other realities. So there's one like material reality, and the other realities that exist are infinite in number. So any reality that you can imagine exists. That is the alternative space model. And you can see it like a grid. And you will see in a second why that's important. So as an example, there's a reality where you're broke. There's a reality where you have $2, $5, $7, and $9. I could use bigger numbers for this, but I decided to just keep it like this. So then there are these things called lifelines. So hopefully the model of like the alternative space makes sense. It's basically a explanation of reality. So reality, once again, one material reality, then a bunch of infinite, basically an infinite amount of other variations of this reality. Then there are these things called lifelines. This is basically you could say a version of reality that exists along this grid. So there's a reality, there's a potential reality, and a lifeline is essentially a reality that is similar in nature and moves along this grid. So imagine, once again, I just gave you the example of being broke. A lifeline would be a reality where you keep being broke along as time goes on. So imagine it like this. You just woke up today and you don't have any money. Then as the day goes on, you still don't have any money. You still don't have any money. And this is basically a lifeline. It's where the realities that are upcoming, they align somewhat with the current reality. So imagine the reality where you are a millionaire. That reality is fundamentally different from the reality where you are broke. So these exist very much apart from each other on different lifelines. Okay? So it moves along this lifeline, and depending on what the reality looks like, it can be in a completely different spot. So then there's also the alternatives flow. So we've talked about the alternative space, the model for reality. We've talked about lifelines, basically similar realities that align. Then we are going to talk about the alternatives flow. This is basically a model that explains the movement between these realities, more specifically chains of cause and effect. So imagine it like this, and I think I have an example here as well. Imagine you're broke, but someone gives you $2. What happens is there's a cause, someone giving you $2. The effect is you are now a person that has $2, which means that is like the logical way to explain it. But in terms of reality, what happens is you were on a lifeline where you were broke. So your reality was you were broke. That's how your reality was actually supposed to keep going. But something happened, a cause, someone gave you $2. As an effect, you now are living in a reality where you have $2 and you're now on a lifeline where you are a person that has $2. Hope that makes sense. Next, it can also happen to $5. So someone might give you another $3. As a result, you move once again to this lifeline where you have $5 and you are now experiencing a reality where you have $5. So the alternatives flow, as I just explained, it's about chains of cause and effect. Something happens, a cause, as an effect, you move to this reality where this effect is part of your reality. This is a very useful thing to understand, the alternatives flow, for two reasons, or for actually multiple reasons. The first one is solving problems. So you might have heard people like Einstein talk about it as well, like you cannot solve a problem from the same frequency that actually created it. How you can interpret this as well is that there are problems in the reality, and if you want to solve them, the secret is not to try and solve them with your mind, but the secret is to actually move to a reality where the problem is solved. So it's a very different type of thinking, but in practice it also means that yielding to simplicity is a very effective thing to do. So what I mean with this is the most efficient path that reality follows is also called the path of least resistance. I think I did put it somewhere here. But reality always follows the path of least resistance. So that means that the solution to any problem is most likely very simple, because reality is in its nature striving towards like least energy expenditure. So the alternatives flow is a model you can use to actually solve problems. The next time you encounter a problem, the next time that something happens in your work, in your relationships, in your health, instead of just trying to solve it with reason, try to solve it with this model. And how? I'm going to share a couple of things which in a second with you to actually do this. But the main shift in thinking you want to make is that problems are no longer solved, but problems are solved by moving to a reality where the solution is the reality. Next are inner and outer importance. So this movement of one reality to another reality can actually be hindered by something called importance. Now there's a bunch of different like synonyms for this. The main one is attachment, that you probably understand from spiritual books or spiritual teachings, is attachment. And there's two forms, inner and outer importance or attachment. Inner importance is something related to yourself. So I am important because of this. And outer importance is something external. So this thing is important to me because of this. So inner importance, for example, I am important. I am an important person. I do important work. Outer importance, for example, this book is really important to me. Transurfing is really important to me. These are examples of importance. And this attachment, this importance, actually hinders the movement of between realities. So the more attached you are to something, the more difficult it's going to be for you to actually move towards another reality where you have what you want. So the key in this case is really to let go and stop attaching yourself to whatever you desire, basically. Now, there's a couple of forms of in and out importance to quickly cover them. Guilt is one of the first ones. So if you feel guilty about yourself, about something you've done, then that is going to create importance, and it's going to hinder the movement to a reality where you possibly would be happier and worthy. There's money. So money is a very important, ironically, thing in our society. And it's very difficult to not create importance around it, because we have been programmed with the belief that we require money to do things, and it's necessary to achieve our goals and all of these things. But it's basically a form of outer importance, if you think about it. A form where we give a lot of importance to money. Perfection. So if you try to do things perfect, and by the way, if you're wondering why these are forms of importance, it's because in reality, everything is at its core consistent out of energy. And that means that energetically everything is the same. So if you look at money and you put it on a pedestal, you're like, oh, things are expensive, like making money is hard. I don't know how to come up with this money. You're basically like being incorrect about something in reality, because at its core everything is the same, because everything is energy at its core. So that's why in a short sentence, why money is a form of importance, but also perfection, like if you try to do things perfect. Importance, of course, attachment, so like energetic attachment, and then superiority, inferiority. So if you see someone or something as bigger than yourself or more important than yourself, that's going to create importance. Inferiority, if you see someone or something as less than yourself, as beneath you, below you, it's also going to create importance. Then resentment, not exactly too sure what it means, but if you resent someone or yourself, that is a part of a form of importance. And judgment. So if you judge someone, it's going to create attachment, and it's going to hinder the most optimal path of moving from one reality to another. And in the specific case of judgment, it's also going to make it much more likely that you experience the reality of someone who you judged. Then we're going to talk about the heart and mind. So I hope this point about importance made sense. The heart and mind. There's the distinction to be made between these two things. The heart actually feels and knows, and has access to intuition and insight. The mind thinks and reasons, and is desiring control and judgment and rationalizing. So these two are existent in unison. The heart is usually referred to as feelings. The mind usually as thoughts, if you want to keep it really simple. Now, the alternatives flow and the heart and mind are very connected, because when your heart and your mind are in unity, so basically when you think and you feel about something in the same way, what happens is you initiate a shift to a different reality. So for example, if you think about something really positively and you feel really good about that thing, you're going to actually initiate, and I'm using the word initiate, but you're basically going to move towards a reality where this thing is actually true. So let's see if I can come up with a quick example. If you feel really good about yourself, right now, for example, you have $1,000 in your bank account. And I'm once again using money because I guess it's the most tangible. But let's say you have $1,000 in your bank account. Then if your heart and your mind are aligned on the possibility of you actually achieving like $3,000, then and you feel like really positive about yourself, you feel like you're becoming wealthier, you think you are becoming wealthier, then what happens is you're going to initiate a shift to a reality where you do actually have $3,000. And yeah, as a result, because of your heart and mind being in unity, you have initiated this shift. And you can probably see why this is very useful, because people that manifest things pretty effortlessly, what they tend to do is they tend to feel very worthy of their goals, and they tend to visualize them. They tend to focus their thoughts and feelings on the goal. As a result, they're going to actually move towards reality where the goal is true. So this is kind of like how manifestation, a possible explanation of how manifestation could actually work. It's basically you imagine something with your thoughts, with your feelings. You feel as if it was already true. People like Neville Goddard talk about this. You feel as if it's already true. You think about it, and that means you're going to shift towards a line, once again, where this thing is more likely to happen. And that is how people, from a potential explanation, create results. So the path of least resistance. Like I said before, reality moves along the path of least resistance. This is what must be understood. Nature and reality move along the path of least resistance. What this means is that the most optimal solution to problems, the most easy way to achieve your goals, is through this model. It's the path of least resistance, the easiest one, the one that requires the least energy. You might have heard people talk about as well, like the collective consciousness, and basically that reality is always trying to optimize the system for everyone involved. It's like the best of everyone, the benefit of everyone. I don't exactly recall what it was called, but because of this, it always tries to optimize the flow of reality for everyone involved, which is also why it's called the alternatives flow, because it moves along this path of least resistance. Next, we're going to talk about guiding signs. So essentially, what happens as reality moves from one to another is it doesn't happen like this, like instantly. There's actually going to be movement between these realities. And there are these things called signs, which you might have heard of before if you're a little bit into like spiritual teachings or esotericism. There are these things called signs to actually indicate a turn in the alternatives flow. So they signal that something is going to change fundamentally in your reality. How you must imagine it is that, for example, once again, I'm going to use the money example to stay consistent. Reality where you have $1,000 right now, then what's going to happen is the next few days, someone is going to give you a large amount of money, perhaps $10,000. Then before that actually happens, a sign might appear that is going to signal wealth. So you can, for example, notice, something on a van, or you notice something on TV about receiving a lot of money. And it can stand out to you. So the key difference with signs is that signs usually stand out to you. So if you see something in reality and it makes you feel like a bit strange, like, this feels like it's supposed to tell me something. That's when you have come across a sign, and that sign is indicating that reality is fundamentally going to change. So you can understand it with the money example. It can also be with a negative one. So if there's something that you should stop doing, reality is going to give you like a warning sign. But if something is going to be positive, it's going to give you a positive sign. Something is going to relate to your goal, it's going to give you a sign related to your goal. So it's a really cool thing to understand this. Yeah, and that's an example I actually had about jobs. So let's say right now you're working this job and you are on a lifeline. I'm continuously just using these examples so you understand. You're on a lifeline that is persistent across this job. Now what happens is before it actually happened, there might be a sign of a new job. So let's say your job right now is a computer engineer. The next job you have is a data scientist. What happens is you get actually a guiding sign that this change in job is going to happen. So you might suddenly see like data pictures on a billboard, or you might notice like an ad online that talks about this. The main thing is that it should actually appear to you personally, but yeah, that's another quick example. Some examples of guiding signs as well are spoken phrases by people. So if people talk about stuff and it's kind of spontaneous, so it's not really with an agenda, it can be a sign. So think about someone that mentions a specific store, or that mentions a specific job, or that mentions a specific location, and it stands out to you, can be a sign. As well as inner feeling or peace. So if you feel really peaceful about something, about yourself, about something in your reality, then it usually is a very clear sign that this thing is good. So inner peace is a clear sign of things being good, and inner disturbance or not feeling good is a clear sign of things not being good. Okay? Awesome. So letting go of control. As I talked about before, this model is very useful to solve problems, to also achieve your goals. What happens is you have a heart and mind. Your heart once again feels and knows. Your mind thinks of reasons. And your mind is going to try to control the most optimal path towards the goals you have set. So think about solving a problem and think about how to solve the problem. So the mind is always thinking about how to solve the problem, what steps do I take, what are the most efficient steps. However, on the other hand, as I told you before, reality has the most effective path, the path of least resistance. So by really letting go of control of the most effective path according to your mind, you actually move towards the reality where the problem is solved much quicker. It's a paradox because reality is paradoxical in nature as well. By letting go of control, you actually gain control. By being willing to let go of knowing the best solution to the problem, you actually solve the problem using this model of reality. It works for problems, for goals. So if you have a problem and you're currently on a lifeline where this problem is your reality, you're going to move towards the solution by letting go of the way to solve it, by letting go of the how. People talk about that as well. Next is a goal. So if you're currently on a lifeline where the goal is not achieved and you let go of control, it's much more likely that you move towards a reality where the goal is achieved. Got it? So these are pretty much the points I wanted to talk about today. We've covered the alternatives model. We've covered lifelines. So let me actually see if I can quickly find this back. We've covered the alternatives model. We've covered lifelines. We've covered the alternatives flow. We've covered the heart and mind, the path of least resistance, guiding signs, which I think is one of the best topics, and letting go of control. So I hope this video made sense about the basis of reality transurfing. Reality, as like a summary, reality exists in infinite forms, and that is a very exciting thing because it means that there is a reality where you have everything you want, and I am going to help you actually move towards that reality. So let's do that together. Hope you have an amazing day ahead. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and looking forward to seeing you in the next video.